Hello and welcome to New York Comic Con's Metaverse event, where we are continuing to break the fourth wall to bring convention entertainment to the comfort of your own home. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics, and it is my pleasure to bring to you specialty costumes from concept to screen and everything in between. Joining me today, I have Ann Foley, Jose Fernandez, and Phillip Boutte Jr. Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? How are you guys?
Hey,
Hey everyone.
Good.
I'm so glad you guys are with us. Obviously, I am fiending for some new, cinematic releases, some new TV releases. So you guys are kind of on the inside track of all the beautiful things that we get to experience. First and foremost, what drew you to this side of the production equation when it comes to making movies?
Well, I majored in fashion merchandising in college, and then a movie came to my hometown of Savannah, Georgia, and my boyfriend at the time was working on it in extras casting, and he just brought me to set, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea, like this whole world that was in front of me. And then I saw the costume designer, and I thought, wow, I'm not going to do the fashion merchandising thing. I'm not going to be a buyer. I'm moving to Los Angeles. And that's what I did. I moved out here with $500 and one phone number, and the rest is history.
Listen, sometimes that's all you need. That's all you need to get success. Jose, what about you? Because I know you have a very interesting story. How did you get started?
Well, I was probably doing cosplay before it was called cosplay. I was building, things that I wanted to, build back when I was 13 in my bedroom, just figuring out, materials, had no money. And then had a few jobs I couldn't stand or couldn't hold. And then I realized there probably is a way to make a living at doing something I like doing. I didn't know where it was going to end. I just knew it was creative, but I used to mess with my clothes. I used to sculpt quite a bit. So it just kind of fell into this world of, I guess, superheroes. I think Batman, Michelle Pfeiffer, Catwoman, that was kind of my first break into this world. And it kind of opened up that world. Because before I was doing monsters, creatures, which I enjoy, but it seemed like a better fit was the costume, like a sculptural thing you could wear. I think that was the blend of what I think brought or bring to this world.
That's brilliant. Oh my God. That is so cool. That is so cool. Phillip, what about you?
I've always loved film. I was a child actor, so I grew up in film. And then when I went to school, I wanted to try to figure out if I could combine some more of the things that I love. So I was always drawing. So I was always drawing characters and kind of like just in my spare time. So when I graduated from college, I went to San Diego Comic-Con with my portfolio to try to get work. And I saw the Costume Designers Guild there. So then I went and I saw a panel of costume designers like Anne and showed them my portfolio. And they encouraged me to join the guild. And I got a job maybe like the next month. And then I got The Mummy 3 with Sonia Hayes.
Wow.
Dragon and Fur. That was my first movie. And then I've been working ever since.
That is amazing. Now, obviously, I come from a comic book background, and there's clearly a team for most comic book production works. Is that kind of how you guys function as a team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
So what does that mean exactly? What's the breakdown in terms of process and order that you guys work in?
Well, generally when I get the job, Phillip and Jose are usually the two people I call first, especially if there is a specialty costume involved. But, once we have the job, we go into meetings with the director, we discuss the look of the film, where we want to go, and then we start the research process. And Phillip was with me through most of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and creating those comic book characters. And, and on a television schedule, you don't have a ton of time. So the beauty about my working relationship with Phillip is that he knows these characters so well. Because when I started S.H.I.E.L.D., I really didn't know much about Marvel.
You can tell us you were a comic book fan long term. You can tell us. It's fine. You're in a safe space.
I am now. So, what was important was we wanted to stay true to the Marvel universe that had already been established in the features. It was a very cool, very specific look. And we wanted our show to sort of blend in with that vibe. And so it was all about looking at the comic book characters, like Quake, for example. And what is it about Quake that we love so much? Well, it was that symbol. And so Phillip came up with this really great idea where we incorporated the symbol not only on the gauntlets, but into the back of the jacket as like a style line. And in the comics, she's got a lot of gold. but we knew that wasn't going to work for our show because they need to be more undercover, more stealth, more tactical. So we use that gold in the trim. And so that's, you know, the great thing about working so closely with Phil, we could like create that together. And I think that illustration was on a very condensed, I think we figured that out in less than a week.
It was pretty
Actually, I'm being overly, it's like we figured that out a couple days.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. Okay, so forgive my newness to it all, but when it comes to defining something as a specialty costume, why is it considered specialty as opposed to just the general scope of costuming?
I think because of all the specific talents that go into creating these costumes. I mean, Jose can speak to that more than I can about all the people in his shop and how many different people set of hands are touching the costume. I mean, for example, on the Trooper, I mean, I think everybody in the shop worked on that. I mean, because once we had the design of that done, then I turned it over to Jose, and he had his illustrators put it into ZBrush so that we could do 3D because we needed to print out the pieces. I mean, it went to the mold shop. I mean, Jose, I'll let you take it from here about, you know, what the process was.
Yeah, to me, I guess the word specialty is something you can't buy. You know, so if you can go to the store and buy it, it's probably not that special for me. So specialty is if it involves sculpture element of some sort, whether it be traditional or digital, and then printing parts, but also all the fabrics, because a lot of the fabrics, some of them are something you may know, leather, teal, there's all these different couture, there's fabrics, but then how you put them together. But if you can see this costume and know where you bought it, that's probably not I'd say specialty. So that well said.
Okay, so from my understanding, the idea here is, and as a costume designer, you're having a lot of conversations with the director, really trying to figure out the vision for this. You go to Phil illustrates this concept to try to get it as close to what the direction is, and then you pass it on to Jose, who starts to build it in physical, real three-dimensional space.
Correct.
Oh my God, that is insane. That is amazing. Okay, so your very first projects working together, what would you say was the one where you three as a team, it was the first time that you guys jumped on board together?
Oh, it's a blurry line. You guys know?
It is a blurry, very blurry. I mean, Philip's done almost since I started costume designing, he's been a part of every job I've ever done, and same with Jose. So Jose did the Patriot for me on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He did obviously the Trooper on Altered Carbon. And then we did some really cool stuff together on Godzilla versus Kong that I can't talk about really other than that. God. And hashtag spoiler alert. And then, and like I said, with Philip, I mean, almost every illustration
all the amazing
I've done.
Let's talk Altered Carbon. That's such an amazing show. The design tactics of it all. You're talking, multicultural, futuristic. What was the brief that you got on that design setup that you started off with?
Well, it was an amazing project. I'm not gonna lie. That was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And Lita Kalaritis, Steve Blackman, our showrunners, brought me on along with Miguel Sapochnik, who is the director of the pilot. And, you know, my brief on the pilot was the Troopers. Christine Wada, who's one of my dearest friends, was brought on to do the civilian aspect for the pilot. So we just focused on getting the Troopers ready for camera. And the most important thing for me with the Troopers was really two things. One, I didn't want the audience to know if they were human or if they were alien. So when they came into the hotel room at the beginning, I wanted the audience to be confused about what that was. The second thing was, in the world of Altered Carbon, it's all about protecting your stack, because everything that makes you who you are is in the stack. So it was the stack protector. And so the rest of the body doesn't really matter because the body can be replaced, which is why the armor isn't all over the body of the Trooper. Specific places to keep them going as long as possible. But if they're killed, they get a new body. So bodies are somewhat disposable in the world of Altered Carbon. They're like an accessory. because you can re-sleeve at any moment.
Right.
So those were the two, things I went into, those two design ideas. That's what I really wanted. And then, from there, Keith Christensen was the concept artist who helped with that. And again, Keith is an absolute genius. He's a dear friend of ours. And without, Keith's help, we never would have been able to get that from concept to, into
Any sort of
Jose's
execution.
hands in like
Right.
10 days, I think.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's insane. I mean, okay, so what's because I mean, you saying these like very short time periods. What is the typical time frame that
Television.
you guys?
It's TV. That's the
That makes
world of
sense.
TV that we're living in, and
Right.
that's one of the reasons why I've loved working in television is that it's taught me how to pivot on a dime and make decisions really quickly. You just have to keep moving forward, and sometimes most of the time it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you hope for the best. But it really like gives you a great building block for being able to do this world building, I think. I mean,
course.
And one of the reasons I've been successful in film, I think, is because I've got that crazy, TV background of like, let's just do this.
Let's make it happen.
Just
We're
do it
not going to
fast,
question tomorrow. I love that.
Well, question real quick or something. So to make it is not 10 days.
No.
Right.
That was the illustration.
No. Just the design. Just the design. But speaking to that, how long did it take to get that first mold piece out? Or I guess model, I should say.
Yeah, the first proof, the first guy off the line, I don't even remember. Was it 2 months, 3 months? Whatever it was, It was too fast. Because on average, I think you want 3 or 4 months to build a special costume in my world.
Yeah.
Okay amount of time. I think we had less. And then on an amazing world, like on a Batman film, you have like 8 months. So some almost a year to really flesh out these ideas. Design, you could do. Sometimes it's amazing, like writing a song. You probably do a design in a day. Once in a while, it's like a fluke or a home run. Other times, it might take a month or 2 months to really suss something out. It is open-ended. It's artistic. So it's a lot like anything artistic, music or anything you want to say.
I love that.
As far as like practically making something you could wear, have action scenes, it's a bit of a process. I'd say quick is 3 months, but I don't know. Do you remember, Anne? How much time did we have? I don't remember.
I think you started in end of September, beginning of October. I think it was end of September, and we had to make a camera test with one by, I remember because it was election day. We flew up to Vancouver 4 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Phil, in terms of your process of design and conceptualizing something, is it just a visual imagery that you're trying to get across, or do you actually have to take in consideration the full functionality of a person wearing something as well?
It's both. Yeah, the short answer is both. And I think that happens between all three of us. Like, so Anne will come up with an idea or like an initial concept based on like reading the script, or she'll have an idea in her head. And then we often geek out together because she'll send me like an image about something, and then I'll be like, oh, and then I'll send her like more back, and we just keep going back and forth and just coming up with ideas, right? And then my ultimate goal for her, or my job, is to make sure that when she walks into that meeting, that illustration sells to the director. So like when they look at it, they're like, cool, and they want to pass it along. At which point then that goes to Jose, and then Jose works his magic on it, which I think that one of the key things that's missing here, that's hard to explain in all of our jobs, is there is the more you learn about specialty, the more parameters you're able to set within specialty. And it's really difficult to explain that to people outside. So it's like when Jose is saying, like, when you bring something to Jose and he's like, okay, he's thinking about it. He's thinking about the time. He's thinking about what he can do within that time. He's also thinking about experience in terms of how things can be functional, but then also artistically trying to figure out what's coolest to make within that time frame. So there's a bunch of stuff that's kind of not said. It's just like you're trying to figure it out. And I think for me, when I'm drawing, I think the hardest part for me usually is trying to be conceptual, which is like draw something cool, and then also knowing that it has to be functional.
Right.
Yeah.
The two of those step on each other. So often I've learned from the two of them, from Anne and from Jose, that sometimes it's best to just be conceptual and get out the creativity part and then back yourself into the function part.
Okay.
Other times it's like we don't have time and it's like you better draw something that's functional.
Something that works right now because we don't have time to just play around with it. No, that's brilliant, and I think that's definitely something that from my end of things, like we don't really know how that works. We just go to the movies and we see this magic on screen and we're like, yeah, somebody just made that lickety split, snap their fingers and it's there. But we don't really understand that length of time. And when you're talking about how long it takes to make a movie, this is a huge undertaking. This is not something that's so quick. And obviously when it comes to something more of a TV format, you're talking way faster. What has been one of the more difficult pieces that you guys have put together that you can stand on right now and go, that was amazing?
Oh, that's a trooper.
It's a trooper for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that everyone unanimously is like, definitely the trooper, definitely that. Okay, so what about it in your parlance? I mean, don't even talk down to me, but what about it is your favorite parts of the trooper design? What is it that you really love and connect?
I love that helmet. I mean, the helmet to me is that's the piece de resistance, whatever it is. Yeah,
piece de resistance. Yes.
There you go. Thank you. I was getting tongue-tied.
All the levels, there's a lot of texture and levels to it, and the helmet is, I think, an amazing piece because it does hide the humanity, and you can't really see how they see. I mean, there's just a bunch of noise, but it all comes together. It's all organized chaos. There's just so much going on, but it still works because you can easily lose it and have it look like scrambled eggs and like, well, so I think it's pretty strong. It's just a lot going on, but it still works. I think it's a really strong design. A lot of mobility, which is great too, having that much and having it still be able to function properly. And just the depth. The helmet has so much depth to it in an interesting way.
It's one of my.
I mean.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just. It's like one of the great things about it when we were shooting was that the stunt, because they were all stunt guys pretty much primarily in that suit, and so they had to be able to move. I mean, I'd seen what Miguel wanted to do with that initial fight sequence in the hotel room, so Jose and I worked really closely in trying to figure out where the stretch panels were going, what to make the stretch panels out of, even what to make the body of the suit out of. And I got to say, for 10 months that we were doing that show, we didn't have one blowout on that suit. It held up really well. And the stunt guys even told me, that they were so grateful that they could move in it and they could do their action. And the way that Jose, built the helmet, they can actually see. So there's a screen in there that's hiding their face, but they can see out of it so that they could do their stunts and
That's amazing. That's amazing. Keep their marks and everything. I love it.
Yeah.
Phil, you were saying?
I was just going to say that, I mean, you can see a lot of even the helmets that Jose's built, like directly behind him.
Yeah.
I think that my favorite thing about this helmet in particular is that in the pantheon of like helmets, it added something completely different. So I felt like conceptually the shapes of it are just strange and it doesn't feel like any other helmet before, like just the kind of insect quality of it and kind of all of the different pieces kind of coming together that form that one shape. I just feel like it added something different. So it's like if you're looking at even between video games and concept art and all those things, that helmet just feels really special. So I think that they did a great job.
Oh my God, absolutely, without question. I think one of the things that's really important for designers and people in the cosplay community that are coming up to understand that part of your job not only is the craftsmanship, but the true ability to tell story and using storytelling to solve problems. Were you avid, readers or writers unto yourselves?
Well, reader, yes, but depending. I mean, like I said before, I wasn't a huge comic book fan before I started Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, admittedly so, but had to take a deep dive fast and furiously into that world once I started the show. And it was so much fun. And it still is to this day. I mean, I love all things Marvel.
We're so glad to have you too.
I gotta put Anne on the spot. I have to say the best part about Anne is that she's always truthful. She's not the person that's like, I've been reading comics since I was 4. And what's been fun is to watch her fall in love with comic books, actually fall in love with them, meaning that she didn't just go in and then say, I'm going to do this job and then kind of fake it. Like she reads them and she actually looks at them and she got involved in a way where she wanted to stay true to the characters, which for comic book nerds, and I'm sure you agree, is a big deal. Yeah. Right?
Yes. Yeah, because there's an authenticity that's there, and it reads like you know for a fact that someone actually cared about what was happening there to kind of come out. And I'm gonna spin that off. Phil, obviously you're a comic book fan. Jose, are you a comic book fan?
No, I'm the opposite.
What? Come on.
Never, and for whatever reason, I've never actually read a comic book in my entire life. My brother grew up with them, so I remember seeing all the imagery, and I'd watch cartoons, but I'm more of like, I want to say idiot savant, but I'm all about imagery,
right?
Line. I'm really inspired by European work, like the masters. So I just have a different viewpoint. So I think what's interesting about that is I can come in then and see all this information come in, kind of filter through my
absolutely.
And that's why I think sometimes it has a little more a different approach to like the other people who do build things because they have a different, they feed on a different well. So maybe it's a different approach, I guess. I think it works.
It does work.
Yes.
It's like,
Definitely work.
I mean, because Jose doesn't have like this deep emotional connection to his characters. Like sometimes I will, or Philip, or especially the fans. And so because of that, sometimes you get this like really beautiful, something really wonderful. Because it's funny, like when you do have a deeply emotional connection to the material of the character, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
Of course.
So you need somebody like Jose to sort of like shake you out of the out of the trees.
And I respect the genre. I respect the history. But then what I try to do, to me, I always my analogy or my thought process is like a martial art. So I train. Now I'm just more reactive. So if I see imagery come in, I'll look at the history, look at this, and then I just react to it. So it's kind of how I view things. I'm not really super concerned about everything, but I am. It's a weird way. I want to know everything and I want to forget it. And then I just want to react to it.
No, that's actually a very smart move for a creative because it allows for you to stay as original as possible with your interpretation. It makes, your input on it yours as opposed to just a retelling of someone else's design, which has got to be, very fulfilling on a creative standpoint. Okay, so when it comes to cosplay and this huge growth that it's had, I admit, when I first started in the comic book business, the guy that came into the show dressed fully as Aquaman was the weird guy. Like that was the guy that we were like, oh, Joe's here, don't look at him. But now it is a full-fledged culture piece that is celebrated. And a lot of that has to be because of the work that you guys have done. Does it feel really good to see that sort of evolution?
Oh my God, yes. It's always so flattering when somebody's cosplaying a costume that you designed. And I've been so lucky to get to be part of C2E2. A couple of years I got to judge that contest and meet a lot of these incredible cosplayers. And I love their passion and I love their art. And I mean, I've seen some truly beautiful pieces there. And I wasn't very familiar with the cosplay again until I started Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I feel really lucky to have been part of that, get to go to C2E2 and be part of that universe and meet all those wonderful people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Phil, Jose, do you kind of echo those sentiments?
I've touched a few things. I guess the Batman's being probably one of the biggest one that people do cosplay, I imagine. And it's interesting. It's really cool to see how they come up with their methods because it's all on the dime, very inexpensive. It's more passion and love that goes into it than the money. And it's really kind of cool to see what they come up with. But then it's also fun for me when I get a new project to see how I can push them because they'll have to figure out something else.
Of course. Listen, you had a stint, I'm sure, for at least a solid year. When Tron Legacy came out, I saw like a strong handful of people that attempted to do, the Tron style suits. and it didn't last long. I think it was one of those things where what you did, no one could just match that on a budget, on a regular person's budget, which just shows like how amazing your concept work was there.
Yeah, I like the Spider-Mans too. A lot of people do Spider-Man, they do it very well, but the skull cap still no one's they can't. Well, it's just good because they can't see it. They haven't figured that out. They rudimentarily, the basic shape they get, the eyes they get.
Right.
There's so much that goes into that thing that you don't understand. There's just, it's like vastly different than what they're doing, which is awesome because they're like, I think it's just like the original. I'm like, no, not exactly.
Not quite. You're close. You're close. A for effort, but not quite there. But that's awesome though. It gives them a place to grow to. Because I mean, obviously on an amateur level, you don't want to max out already and be able to do what the masters do.
But
have there been?
Again, it's sort of like getting to see their idea of this character and their costume, and they're paying tribute to it in a way. And sometimes what I love are when they take the Thor costume, but then they do a gender flip on it, and it's awesome. So it's like sometimes it's never going to be exact, and they even know that, but they'll do a twist on it that just is so fun and mind-blowing sometimes.
That's awesome. Has there ever been a piece that's particularly impressed you with what they were able to do?
Oh my God. I mean, the stuff that I saw in Chicago at C2E2, all of it blew me away.
That's awesome.
I think the Hulkbuster.
Yes, I knew you were going to talk about that one. What?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then there was this, it was amazing, but then there was another guy who came in who built a transformer based on his car.
Wow.
And it was bigger than the Hulkbuster, and it had lights, and it had steam, and I mean, it made noise. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was great. It was really great. So there's been some amazing, there was another cosplayer that cosplayed the witch from Narnia, and she had handmade her chainmail, like each little link she had done. It took years to do this. I mean, it was like, I'm gonna hire you tomorrow. She did beautiful work.
That's fantastic. Phil, what about you?
I don't know. My favorite thing I think has just been when you see cosplayers like from stuff from like S.H.I.E.L.D. and you get to interact with them, or like there's been times where I've been on the floor of Comic-Con and I've had Anne with me and we stop someone and then they were like, she designed this costume, and they're like, what? And they freak out because they're just super excited about it.
That's so awesome.
My favorite thing are the little things. I like running into people that have costumes on where they have all the details. And then I remember sitting and drawing something, and like it could be Anne's like, we got 15 minutes, and I do some like whatever lines, and now they're on the back of this person's costume. Like, that part's really fun for me, is just to see something like that was a mistake, but it made it in.
But it made it there. Yeah. That's amazing.
Particularly for me, my favorite cosplay usually comes down to when people are super creative or when they mix things together. So like someone made Taco Bell, and they mixed Belle and Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and they made the costume out of tacos, or like just funny, just comical things like that. Or I think was it Dumbledore the Explorer? So it looked like
oh yeah,
those things I just really enjoy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, Jose, I can fully understand if you're a hard nut to crack there, because you got some amazing work. So someone really has to come up with something insane to impress you. But has that happened? Have you stopped someone and been like, "That's amazing"?
I think I remember, maybe my imagination, I think I do remember seeing somebody do a samurai, was it a samurai stormtrooper?
Wow.
Oh wow.
Cool. And I've seen stuff done with floor mats, for like in the car floor mats, and they just put these, that's always clever and interesting to me, because that's my memory of my early days of just cobbling together whatever you had. It's always interesting to see that kind of thing makes a mark for me.
That's brilliant. Okay, so getting people started in terms of understanding materials, what's the best way to kind of learn, what things to work with, what things, you can do with the different materials that are out there? How do you get started?
Jose, I'll let you take that one.
Well, I think that's YouTube, right? Everything is on the interwebs.
Right.
So that's where you start. But then the most important thing to learn is you need to fail. So if you expect to do everything right the first time, you're never going to get better. So just expect you're going to fail, and then just do it again and again and again. By sheer will, you'll figure it out and get better. But just start there because the internet has everything on it, right? Everything. So
Right.
you just have to learn it. Hopefully you don't hurt yourself in the process. I think I remember learning how to do plaster cast. And I did one on my leg. I forgot hair on my leg.
Oh.
I remember screaming like a girl on that one. I've heard people doing their faces that way. So you just hopefully you don't hurt yourself, but you kind of have to fail to get good at anything. You just have to just do it.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I mean, that's actually good advice. It's like, we learn from our, failures. We learn from our successes. Every job, everything that we do, you learn something new from and that's what makes us the designers that we are.
Of course.
Learn. If you don't, you just end up sucking forever. But the idea is you learn.
You become the teacher. Don't do that. That's not the way. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's important to surround yourself with creatives that me, I like to be the least talented person. I really like to surround myself with people that are, because then you learn. Like I constantly feel like I learn. Like every time I work with Jose or every time I work with Anne, I feel like I learn something. And that's the best part, because then you're never in the pocket where you feel complacent or you feel comfortable. So I think that's really important. And to self-edit, meaning to look at yourself and know what you want to get better at, and then push that back out into trying to just work as hard as you can and failing over and over.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you learn from anybody and everybody, for sure. You can learn from anybody. And also I think the key is, once you think or you feel you've arrived, then you're done learning, which is bad. There's always somewhere to go and always somebody better than you, and things you can learn and keep pushing. So some people get very boastful and they think they've done it. I'm like, well, then they just leave them behind.
Oh my God. We're going to have to mark this as the PSA portion of this panel, because I think this is absolute wisdom that people need to know. Okay. So as technology has changed during the course of your careers, has it truly become easier, or is it a matter of too many flavors, too hard to pick something to work with?
No, I mean, I think as technology changes, we all strive to keep up with it, and it definitely makes makes my job easier sometimes. Definitely in the case of all the cool stuff you can do with a 3D printer now. That Trooper was primarily 3D printed because of our time frame.
Wow.
And so it has opened up a whole nother world of what we're able to achieve. I mean, I do miss the old days of the sculpting. Jose did a beautiful sculpt for a project that we're going to be working on together in the future that we can't talk about quite yet. And, you don't want to lose that ability to be able to go back to the sculpts and rely completely on 3D printing. But the 3D printer has been quite an amazing tool. And even, as far as when we're doing the conceptual design, working in ZBrush and being able to use that as a tool. And we don't need it all the time, but when we're doing these heavy builds on these, some of these characters, you do need to see the turnaround. For the Trooper helmet, Keith did that. I just had a front view, I think, on that helmet. I don't even know if I had a side view.
Wow.
So, Jose's guy actually put it into ZBrush and gave me, the 3D turnaround.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, but we don't have to do that on every project, but to know that it's there, it's great.
I think it's so very well said to not just rely on the newfound technology, but the old school skills as well. Phil, I'm guessing you do a lot of work digitally, but do you still like to put, pen to paper?
I do when I can. I now, especially through the encouragement of our friend that we're talking about, Keith. Keith just told me, he's like, keep a sketchbook right next to you. So what I try to do now, even more so than anything, because I am learning a bunch of processes. I've been spending 90% of my day in ZBrush just trying to get it.
Okay.
But I still find that I need to sketch things out first to understand them before I start translating them in a different way. And I think that that's kind of something, I think the foundational skills and then using the tools on top of that is always best. There's just something about it. And I talk to Jose about this often, because it was there's just something about touching the clay that's different than doing it the other way.
Right.
I just feel like it comes out more natural and more organic. So I definitely try to go back to my foundational skills as much as possible, even though I'm working so much digitally now. And there's the technology keeps increasing. So it's just like, you know, for every step, I'm like, okay, I think I kind of got this ZBrush. And then someone's like, Blender. And I'm like, oh, God. Like,
what is this?
It just keeps expanding and you just have to just keep up. But then the foundation is where you start.
That is amazing. Okay, so again, going back to that foundational aspect, what is something that you personally feel was a talent that you actually had versus a skill that you had to build up to? And Ann, I want to start with you on this one, as you're so very quick to point out, like, you know, Phil is doing the drawing style, you got Jose doing the sculpting stuff, but clearly you have some very sincere talents. What would you say is an absolute talent versus a skill set that you had to build?
Oh wow, that's actually tricky. I don't really know how to answer that one. You know, I think that as the designer, it's, you know, because I started off as an assistant designer, and even before that I was a set costumer, so I've kind of done everything. And over the years assisting, I was lucky enough to assist people, you know, designers like Michael Kaplan, Marlene Stewart, Ellen Moroznik, Betsy Hyman, and I got to see, you know, how they worked with cast, what their process was. That was like going to college for me. And so, you know, it's sort of been just like trying to take those things that I learned from each one of those designers and apply it to how I approach the job. And, you know, because what I do as a costume designer, sometimes 10% of it is getting clothes on the actors and the rest of it is managerial stuff. So it's really that balance, I think, of, you know, the design and, you know, managing the department and making sure I'm bringing on the best team. Because it's sort of like what Philip was saying earlier, I try to surround myself by people that are better than me. And because, you know, we're going to create something magical. And great ideas don't necessarily just have to come from me. They're coming from Philip, they're coming from Jose, and it's a collaboration. So we're all in it together to, you know, try to get to that end spot and that perfect costume.
That is beautiful. Phil?
I think what skill set wise, like I feel, I don't know, I feel like my strongest strength usually ends up being communication. I was always the kid that talks too much. So I enjoy people. And then I think that the thing that I really have had to work on really is my art, which is just diving into it more, consistently learning and growing, and then going through a lot of growing spurts. So I think that the key thing for me is, you know, I started traditionally and I started to work. So at first I was doing like watercolor and color pencil and gouache and all those things. And then work kind of sped up and it was like about the computer and scanning in fabrics and all of that. And then it became like, okay, well now you have to use photographs in your work. So it's like through the course of my career, I've gone through all of these different stages and it just keeps expanding. So I think that the key thing for me has been being open. And then trying to learn, like whenever I get to go to the shop and look at like the stuff that Jose is making, I try to take in as much as possible, look at it and see. And then also talking with Ann often in the office, we're talking about function and like harnesses and straps. So it's just like a constant learning. So I feel like that's been an ongoing process, you know, that didn't come naturally, that I've had to really work at.
Nice. Jose?
Maybe natural. I don't know what would be natural. I mean, artistic, right? Just by nature, whatever it is, just designing or building anything. I love it. Doesn't really matter. There's no parameters. That doesn't have to be film or anything. But I think my strength, if you would say, or trait, would be my eye and my unwillingness to settle. I think
That's true.
Make it and it's done. Well, not really. You could do it better. So it's like those cooking shows. If you have 30 minutes, you don't stop till the 30-minute buzzer goes off. That's right. So what I do is, like Phil, I think was saying that earlier, you have to work in this constraint. You have time and money, right? So if you have 3 months, you figure out what can you do in that time. If you have 8 months, what can you do in that time? I try not to just phone it in or coast. I'm always trying to push it a little bit further. And sometimes it bites me, you know, meaning because it costs more than they're giving me. But ultimately my name is on it. Right. And I can't just phone it in. Money's important, but maybe my reputation is kind of more.
Integrity is everything, man.
Yeah. So, and I've known people to say that, but do they really mean it? I mean, I've seen a lot of work out there that is questionable to me, and I would just be embarrassed to have my name on it or even deliver it and ask for money for it. So to me, it's just tenacity. You know, I was never the best, and then I have this saying, you know, there's very few geniuses in the world, and I'm not one of them. I just work very hard and just try not to just settle, just push.
Well, I can definitely say as a viewer, consumer of your work, we appreciate that effort that you're putting in there. And just to kind of show that you guys, you know, are appreciators of other people's work, who are some pieces, or what are some pieces that you've seen that you didn't have a direct hand in that really, you know, kind of knocked you back and said, you know, this person's design work in this movie or show was tip top?
Oh, wow. Well, the most recent thing that I've seen that blew my mind was Dune. Like, I can't get enough of that.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of it. I know Jose worked on some of the pieces on that, but I think it's stunning.
That's amazing. Yeah, instant legendary status, Jose. That was just, that little trailer was just like, I've experienced things. It's so amazing. Phil, what about you?
I'd have to say, I mean, if I'm on the spot, I'm trying to think about some of the stuff. I know Jose did a lot with Wonder Woman's costume.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the translation of what she looks like in the comics versus what they came up with is infinitely cooler. I'll say that just to be able to go to the shop every once in a while, just look at all of the things there. The thing that for me has been great is, like, when you grow up and you're trying to figure these things out, the one thing you want is when you go from a comic book to the screen, you want the screen to be something you never would have thought of. So you want that translation to be like so much bigger, and like the version, right? Like it's like spandex to like armor. Like, so they do that really well. So I'd say that like any of those translations are the ones I geek out about.
Nice. Jose, what about you? Any things that you've seen that you haven't worked on? Because I mean, you've touched everything.
Yeah, no, there's lots. I mean, it doesn't even have to be. Well, like we're talking about telling a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something as simple as there's a movie called Kick-Ass, which when it came out, it was so damn good. It was so refreshing, and it was so basic, just together spandex. I loved it. And I was jealous I didn't get to work on it. Then you have something like a lot of the Marvel stuff I haven't touched, like the Iron Mans, the ones. A lot of it's digital, but there's some practical bits. They're so beautifully done. So there's a lot of stuff that I've seen. It could be any end of the spectrum, from very rudimentary, simple to very complex. But I'm inspired by a lot of things, you know, like that. There's a movie,
awesome.
Alien, when it first came out. Holy crap! You know,
yes.
My mind, I don't know what that came from. It's so twisted, but it's hard to beat that creature. It was done. True. So yeah, I'm inspired and awed all the time.
Oh my God. Like, you just brought up two of my favorite things, H.R. Geiger and Mark Miller. Phil, I'm telling you right now, I'm super jealous because I believe you've worked on Jupiter's Legacy. Is that true? Man. Okay. I'm a huge Mark Miller fan. He's my mentor and friend. So I cannot wait to see that come out. But as we are rounding down, where can everyone find you on social media and things like that to check out more of your work? And we'll start with you.
On Instagram and .Foley.
Wonderful. Phil?
Instagram, Phil_Boutte, and on Twitter at @PBoutte.
Awesome. Jose?
I'm horrible. I think it's Ironhead Studio on this.
Phil, do you let Jose, do you let people come into your studio space and check out the pieces?
No.
Really,
I mean, maybe we can work something out, but no.
Okay, good, because I was really asking for me. I'm not gonna lie. I was definitely asking for myself.
No.
That is, you have museum quality work back there, and it looks fantastic. I don't know if I could be comfortable with Apocalypse just looking behind me like that. You're a very brave man. I couldn't do it. But no, I want to thank you guys so very much for sharing your time and your talent with me today and all of us out here. Seriously, thank you to New York Comic Con for bringing us together. This was amazing. I want to thank all the fans for tuning in. I'm Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics, saying thank you and enjoy the rest of Metaverse.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.